I would say almost all yacht rock is soft rock, but not all soft rock is yacht rock. I think a lot of people misidentify soft rock as yacht rock.
That's so cool. I mean, I want to talk a little bit about your love for music because you've got your history with Woodstock 99 and Daisy Jones and the Six. What is it specifically about yacht rock that made you want to dive into this?
But you brought up Woodstock 99, the last doc I did, and that was a much darker film. And, I kind of used the story of Woodstock 99 as a Trojan horse to kind of explore late 90s culture in America. When I was approached if I wanted to pitch another music story, I knew it needed to be lighthearted and fun and really showcase the music itself. And I was working on Daisy Jones at the same time, so I was kind of immersed in this 1970s, Los Angeles culture. And I think a lot of people romanticize about that time period, but more or less about bands like Fleetwood Mac or the Eagles or like the Laurel Canyon scene. And I think at the same time, there was a whole other scene happening in these recording studios of, I guess you call these yacht rockers, these incredible session musicians making this music that was dominating kind of pop culture in the late 70s. And I don't think their story has really been properly told. So that's kind of where I honed in on. And there's no better, lighter story. It's a comeback story also of these guys to how popular their music is now. So it checked all the boxes of a story I wanted to tell as my next follow-up doc.
Mm. I mean, it's a wild story. I'm also like, I remember Woodstock 99 as it was happening. I mean, I grew up listening to this music and not even realizing the kind of effect or the foundation of it. I learned so much from watching this documentary and was reminded of so much down to just the evolution of everything and seeing how it expanded even into Warren G. It's like, so it's a wild ride that this genre has had.
Absolutely. And it was really important for me to show the influence of Black music, not only on the yacht rock, these artists in the 70s themselves, they wore their inspiration on their sleeves. They all talk about how, like, Ray Charles and Earth, Wind and Fire and, Stevie Wonder, those are their influences, and it helped evolve their music. People like Michael McDonald and Kenny Loggins and Christopher Cross. And then to see it come full circle with hip hop artists in the, early 90s that rediscovered this music of the late 70s and started using it as samples. I thought it was really interesting and cool as kind of the beginning of the resurgence of this music in pop culture.
In the documentary, you kind of touch on like how you can kind of define it.
Yeah.
What would you say yacht rock actually is?
I would say almost all yacht rock is soft rock, but not all soft rock is yacht rock. I think a lot of people misidentify soft rock as yacht rock. This was music that was coming out of Southern California in the late 70s, heavily influenced in R&B and jazz, and these complex chord changes they would use in this music brought in all these incredible session players to record. And I think it's important it takes place in Southern California. This is like a small group of people making this music, and they all played on each other's albums too. And I think that is kind of the place to start. And then listen, part of the beauty of this genre is people arguing about what is or isn't yacht rock. I mean, it's a completely made up thing, so it's kind of fun. But I do think when you strip away all of that, it does make sense as a genre, a subgenre of soft rock.
It's funny that you mentioned that because there was something that I noticed when, you were kind of going through like who falls into that category and like where they rate on the scale. I was looking at Questlove's playlist and some of the artists that he included. I'm curious for you, like where do your artists fit in? Like I saw Paul Simon was on his list.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
He stretches it. Although he also calls it yacht and defensive yacht rock and dentist chair music. I kind of hit that part on his playlist, but I had to find the balance in making the story. I wanted to respect the actual artists of the time, but also the guys that invented the word yacht rock and kind of tell their story too. And I kind of followed their rules because they're the OGs that created this monster, I guess, that they had no idea would take off to define, a whole generation of music. So their Mount Rushmore is like Steely Dan, Michael McDonald with or without the Doobie Brothers, Kenny Loggins, Christopher Cross, and Toto. And that was like that's where I started. And those are the stories I wanted to tell. And I think it kind of has tentacles after that. And that's for, people like you and others that watch it to talk and discuss and debate about.
Did you have an idea going into this? Like, I want to tell this specific story, or was it something that unfolded while it was happening or in the editing process?
I think it always unfolds, and making documentaries, it always kind of unfolds as you're making. You go in with one plan, and that's the beauty of documentary filmmaking. All of a sudden, you're going this way with it. But I always knew that I wanted these artists to give a chance to them to define their music, and their reaction of this kind of retroactively created label that has come to define their music and their relationship with that word. They push against it. Do they think it's funny? Have they accepted it? Are they still having a hard time accepting it? And that was interesting to me. And I think it's across the spectrum. You'll learn in the documentary who thinks it's hilarious, who doesn't love it, and who really doesn't love it.
You know what I find similar, just in comparison in the music world? I mean, this is like a subgenre within a genre, like you had
Right.
mentioned. It's similar that way with metal bands, and
Yeah,
you get
exactly.
the same kind of reaction there. What kind of reactions have you gotten so far from people?
Steely Dan fans are very polarizing. They either hate the word yacht rock or have accepted it to describe. I mean, they're the hardest to deal with. I get lots of hate tweets and emails from Steely Dan fans, but no one's seen the movie yet. I think and again, I can't stress that conversation I had with Donald right afterwards, we got an A-OK to license all his music. So I think it's a wink. I think he gets it. I think he wanted to say his piece, but he also understands, just like these other artists, that like it's brought a whole new legion of fans to fall in love with this music. I think I always say you enter this genre ironically because it was basically birthed out of the internet, right? But you fall in love with it very quickly, and it takes you back to a place that, this music is a soundtrack to our lives, whether we like it or not. You hear it everywhere you go, in Target and grocery stores and dentist office, right? It has been there for us, from the beginning, and I think it will continue to do that.